This is 911. State your emergency. Hello? I can't help you if I don't know where you're at, honey. Where are you at? Where are you? I need as many units as I can get for Fairfield Road. Give me the numbers.
911, what's your emergency?
Hey friends, it's Fletch. I'm Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform. Welcome to this new podcast series, Off the Cuff, Confessions of an ENP. Brought to you by 911 Inform, delivering next-generation 911 services for the enterprise today and making every second count. In this series, we're going to be talking to ENPs that have been on the job for years, as well as those brand new ENPs that have just passed the test. We'll dig in and have an in-depth conversation and find out what the ENP certification means to them. We'll talk about why they did it, what it means for their career, and what they did to pass the exam. Industry certifications are important to industry professionals, and the ENP certification is one that's admired by many in public safety. So join me as we find out exactly what makes an ENP tick in this off-the-cuff podcast series, Confessions of an ENP. Hey, it's Fletch. Welcome to this episode of Off the Cuff, True Confessions of an ENP. Today we're sitting down with Yasmen Barnett, ENP, who's from South Florida, down in Kissimmee, just below the land of the mouse. Welcome to the podcast, Yasmen, and congratulations on your brand new ENP certification.
Thank you.
So when did you get notified that you were an ENP? Pretty soon, right? Pretty recently.
Yeah, about a couple minutes ago, I would say.
Yeah, I think you're probably the freshest one we've ever had on here. So tell me a little bit about Yasmen Barnett. What do you do? You're from Central Florida, obviously, but give me your background story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in dispatch in November of 2014. I started as a baby dispatcher, which, I mean, I guess you can still kind of consider me a little bit of a baby dispatcher.
My daughter is only 3 years younger than you. You're still a baby dispatcher.
But yeah, so started with the Osceola County Sheriff's Office in Kissimmee. Worked my way up to being an assistant supervisor or an assistant squad leader in 2017, and then worked myself up to being a dispatch supervisor in May of 2020. And then most recently, I left that in July of this year to begin a position with I am responding as a district management associate. So that's my current position in the 911 world while still dispatching on every other weekend.
Nice. So I am responding. So it's an application I've heard about for quite a few years. What I understand is it's a way for first responders, primarily volunteers and so forth, where you've got that to indicate to their unit and their department to dispatch, hey, I got the call, I'm on the way, this is where I am. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so we're a secondary paging notification system, and basically what it is we have our app and our website, and the agencies will get I am responding, and it's fully inclusive of the agencies, so they'll be able to then they'll be able to then get their CAD dispatches through the app and through the website and go responding on there. So it's not meant for dispatch in itself. It's actually meant for the first responders, so they can actually see on their app and their website where they are in relations to the call. They're able to get those actual dispatches through Two-Tone Detect, where they'll be able to re-listen to those dispatches, get everything at their fingertips. And then most recently, we just integrated with Rapid SOS, where all the information that will be available in Rapid SOS, as long as they have the capability to do so, so that location information and rich data is actually going to come through on the I Am Responding app. So it's there at the fingertips of the first responders.
You know, I think that's really cool. So my company as well integrates with Rapid SOS, and we don't want to make this a commercial about our companies, but you know, it's really interesting how Next Generation 911 has created that portal, you know, where we can use things like jurisdiction view that give us a pipeline into the Peace app. That is changing dispatch in a major way. It's not just taking calls and pushing a couple of buttons, blowing out tones to a particular squad or a unit, or track and dispatch running license plates. It's really changing to where you're managing the incident. I'm not sure I know of a good name to call that yet. I'm waiting to come up with that, but it's not a dispatcher. It's not a telecommunicator.
Mm-mm.
It's an emergency response management professional, but that's just way too long to say, I think.
Might be a little needs to be a little shorter.
Is that an ERMT? No, it doesn't have a
Oh.
good, that's not an acronym. Yeah. What are you? I'm an ERMT. Are you choking? Are you all right? No. It might generate some 911 calls. But I mean, that's changing. Do you think that's driving people out of dispatch, or does it need to be promoted more so it drives people into dispatch?
I think it needs to be promoted more to get people into dispatch. This is a career that's definitely the nice part is that it's changing and it's just becoming better. I think in comparison to and I can say that from the year I first started to now, it is a completely different environment than it used to be. I mean, we went from such an upgrade in technology to an upgrade to what's available out there at our fingertips, assisting us with those callers and getting first responders out to the location so much that promoting that is actually going to bring more people into this field.
Do you think that's going to bring in your opinion, your age group, late 20s? Is it going to bring in the group slightly older than you or slightly younger than you, or all?
Honestly, I think it's going to bring all, but I will say that it'll get skewed depending on what those agencies go out for and who they're going out for. Because if you're promoting in a specific area, say, there's I did a little bit of recruiting for our agency before, and so depending on where we went out depended on those age groups that we got. A lot of the ones that we got that were older than me were actually return dispatchers that were coming back to the field. They were ones that actually worked for our agency before, and they were coming back, and I mean, it was a big change from when they were in our center before to now, but definitely it brought on the group that was a lot younger than me. It was that age group between 19 and I want to say maybe 21, 22. So it all depends on how they're going out about it, how they're promoting it, and where they're getting them from.
So you think public safety could actually control the skew of that number to
Oh,
get
yeah.
the age group that they want? Well, that's interesting because, I mean, you don't want to target me. I'm 61. Like, I'm done. Like I'm a 10-year guy if you're lucky, right? Maybe a 10-week guy, who knows? Yeah. But so you're looking to make an investment in people. I think it's interesting that you can go out and target people in the under 20 age bracket,
Oh, yeah.
because this is a long-term employee. If you can keep them for 20 to 30 years, my God, can you
Absolutely.
imagine what you're going to have when you get that? The leadership quality is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, when I was recruiting, one of the very last things that I did was I actually went to it was a gathering of career counselors, and they were all at a technical institute, and they were just there, kind of. It was a auto institute that they were there hosting their gathering at, and so I just managed to be able to speak to everybody at the same room, and it was very surprising because I didn't know how they would be receptive to what I was giving or the career that I was giving, because it is a career that is actually, if you look at most teenagers nowadays, they're gamers, they're multitaskers, they're dealing with the stresses of their everyday life, and the teenagers nowadays are actually dealing with a lot more than we really think of, because a lot of them are doing dual enrollment with college and still doing their high school years. So again, that multitasking, that skill set that we want to focus on, they're they're encompassing that. They're at the beginning stages of that. Bringing them into the 911 field, you're just developing that, and you're just creating, like you said, those leaders for the future. It's that development of that new group that's going to actually continue to grow in 911. So when I went out and spoke to those career counselors, didn't think much of it, but I mean, as soon as I finished my presentation, it was very much like, how do we reach you? How do we get this out to our students? Like, can you come to our school and do this, show up for this career fair? Or, but that was a lot of the age group that we were getting towards the end. Our 18-year-olds, our 19-year-old. I started when I was 19. So in bringing in those people, you start to get those leaders early on. You start to get those people that are, you can start to, I don't want to say perfect them because you can't ever perfect someone, but you can get closer to it. And with the ever changing field of 911, that technology is growing and they're going to be able to grow through it as well with them.
I think that's a great point. You identify the leaders early, and
Mhm,
then you focus your input to them
mhm.
to, again, not, what you're doing is you're influencing them in the right
Exactly.
direction, right? To make them better leaders for what the future is going to bring. So as part of the Nina Institute board that administers the EMP test, we,
Mhm.
write all the questions, we validate the tests every year and make sure that they're out there and they're doing the job that they're supposed to do, identifying people with this specific focus. I always wonder, do we need to change some of the question formats, and do we need to focus less on, maybe not focus less on technology, but do we need to
Mhm.
add additional skill sets that we focus on, um, making it partially a functional test
I
to
think that would actually
identify
be
those?
a really great idea.
Yeah, I just thought of it. I don't want to. I'm wondering if I'm putting my foot in my mouth here, but Fletcher changed the E&P test. Wait a minute. What do you mean? Yeah, but I'm wondering. Trust me, you don't know me yet. That's people are going to say that. But I'm wondering if we shouldn't be looking at some questions to identify different leadership roles as that capability is changing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be something to add to the test that alongs that kind of goes along with the personality of the person as well. Like you said, being able to identify those leadership capabilities that whenever I think of the ENP or having those letters after your name, that's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining those future leaders. And even those who don't have it behind their name and decide to take it in the future, that is what I'm going to look at them as in the future when they get those letters, but even now. So they're getting their points ready, getting ready to take that test. And once they get that, they are the future leaders in 911. So I agree. I think that would be a good aspect for the test.
And by the way, today is the first time you're seeing those three letters after your name right on the screen there.
Yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
Um, it made it feel like all the work that I had done, all the nights that I had spent studying were just finally for something. My thing is I need a lot of motivation to keep going. And having that pridefulness I get, or yeah, pridefulness in myself and in being able to work that hard to get those letters after my name. I mean, it's not something that the me of a year and a half or 2 years ago would have even thought was possible.
So we were recording just before we started. And as I made that correction and typed those letters in, I captured your face and I was watching. And you've got a big, wonderful smile. And it just got a little bit bigger when I hit enter. And it was so cool to be able to go, you're an ENP.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I'll send that to you in a little separate
Thank
video
you.
clip because that's something that was special for me.
Oh,
So at
good.
least. But that's one thing that you're going to really enjoy is the additional recognition that you're going to get from, especially other ENPs, when
Yeah.
you have those letters after him. Why did you take the test? What was your incentive?
Yeah, so like I was telling you a little bit ago, my goals were to get into the private side. And again, it went back to me trying to figure out how I was going to make that happen for my future self because it wasn't a plan for now. It was a plan for later on. I was going to spend my time in the public sector and then move into private. Well, and I apologize, my dog is digging at that carpet.
That's
But
okay.
so for the EMP, I didn't realize I had the points until I think I just saw it behind somebody's name once and was like, I really wonder what that is. And I went on to Nina's website and I kind of scrolled through and was like, oh, this is interesting. And I think I had just been a supervisor like maybe a month and a half, 2 months. And so when I looked at the points, I was like calculating and I was like, I have these points. My degrees have helped me fulfill these points as well as my years in service. I was like, I can take this. And so it was my discussion with Erica Lakey when we were kind of looking at it, and it was kind of a time
Oh, there's
in
a
our
mistake.
lives.
That's a mistake right there. Do not talk to Erica Lakey about anything. Trust me.
Oh man. But you know what? She is my partner in crime and she has been so supportive in everything that I've wanted to do and vice versa. Because I think unless you have somebody who is actually behind you and standing and cheering you on, it's so hard to just get motivated to do the things that you want to do sometimes. But we had kind of gotten into this, I want to say maybe a little bit of a rut in our careers where we were kind of like, we wanted to do all these things, put in for all these conferences, go ahead and start doing all these things, but we were kind of just holding ourselves back. So when we kind of got a little closer, and I've known her since I've started at the agency, but we got a little closer over the last couple of years. And so we started talking a little more and we found out that our goals were kind of aligned in what we wanted to do. And we noticed we were both kind of holding ourselves back in what we wanted to do, that when we kind of paired up and it was just kind of like go for it, it kind of gave that push to just do it. And let me just tell you, it's been a whirlwind since then of everything that we've done. But that was the goal, is was to get the EMP, was to get it and be able to be proud of ourselves. And it was kind of a culmination of what we were in this field. And so being able to then start studying for it, start, joining all these different sessions and learning all the material and kind of realizing that everything that we've known over the years was just kind of amassed in this exam. And then for it to kind of be there, but more technical and more actual deliberate and spelled out for you. But being able to realize, I know this, I dealt with this, so many months ago or yesterday. So getting that EMP and being able to just have it after your name, it really just amassed everything that I wanted in my career, and now just I have it now. And so everything's just come a little quicker than I thought it would.
Well, no, that's fantastic, and I love to watch your excitement because you're making your career, you're making your future, you're doing it, and the coolest thing that you said is you're going through the points and you sit down. I got this, and that's such a good feeling. And I
Yeah.
remember, way back in 2007 or 2008 when I was going through and going, "Hey, I got this. I can do this," and that was just really, really amazing. And it never existed when I was working. When I dispatched was 1980. I mean,
Mhm.
good golly, you think technology was old, when you started. Let me tell you, it barely existed when I was there. But you know what? What's interesting is the job today
Mhm.
is still the same as it was 45, 50, 60 years ago. You answer the phone, somebody's got a problem, you got to assess it, you got to get the right people to the right spot. You
Yep.
just have a lot more technology at your fingertips today
Yeah.
to deal with that. So how did you deal with down in Osceola? I mean, that's a high tourist area. You're taking all the overflow out of Disney World. I mean,
Mhm.
your population must grow 5, 6, 7 times in size with a bunch of people who may or may not understand, read, or write English, and certainly have no idea where they are.
Yeah.
Right. I always
Yeah.
joke with people down in Central Florida. It's like you get a caller, 911, where's your emergency? I don't know where I am. Well, I need to know where you are. Well, I'm next to the pawn shop across the street from the
Oh my
massage
gosh.
parlor.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
So you're somewhere between Winter Park and Kissimmee.
That is
You're-
exactly it. Because as you said it, I just looked at in my head the actual county map of all the pawn shops that were next to the massage parlors, and I could probably pull out 5 different locations.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you look out the window and that's all you're going to see. And, it's like, oh, I'm at a water park. Which one? The
Oh
one
my
with the
gosh,
big
yeah.
slide in the waterfall. Oh, that one. Sure. Yeah, no problem.
No.
That's
Oh my
amazing.
god.
How do you think that changed the types of calls that you got in that kind of high tourist area as opposed to a regular community? Does that affect the types of calls coming in?
Yeah. So from when I first started dispatching to now, we have gotten so many things have happened over the years that we've gotten an influx of different people coming in, and it's just grown like massively in the last few years. I mean, we had Hurricane Maria that affected Puerto Rico, which it caused an influx of people to come in and move in, and several homes to start being built. And then just the different economic situations that have occurred over the years, how it's affected COVID, that brought in another influx of people that now it's just like our county cannot handle it. But that goes to the same for 911. We saw the difference in calls. So, in how, before when I first started, I knew that there was always going to be a lull in calls at some point in the night. There is no lull in calls now.
Really?
No.
Oh my gosh.
No. I remember when it was 10 o'clock at night and you knew you'd get a little bit less of an influx of traffic. And now 10 o'clock was like, it's nothing. When I left in July, I was on night shift, and there were just some night shifts where it was just continuous all night long. And those days where you just had a couple of hours of a reprieve were the best nights now in comparison to when I first started. We didn't have calls for 5 or 6 hours sometimes, and
Sure.
that was the best. But yeah, definitely that the tourist population of the west side of our county, because that's where our tourists are the
Yep.
west side. Um, it's just if they can't stay at Disney World and they can't stay on Disney property or they can't stay in Orlando, they come and stay in Kissimmee. And then we have Old Town, which is huge now and has grown over the years. So now that's become like an actual major hub for people to come in. And then the west side of our county, all those different subdivisions are now Airbnbs and VRBOs. And but they're mixed with the residential properties. So now you've got all these different house parties, and you know what? It's specific that you know what kind of calls are going to come in depending on the time of the year. So I always knew that when it was the end of the high school year, so around May to June, you knew that on the west side of the county, every weekend, you were going to get house parties. And it was because everybody from Orlando were coming to Kissimmee. And you know what? It's funny, but you'd get people coming from as far as Miami and up as north as Jacksonville, coming to
Wow.
Kissimmee to host these, to go to these parties because they were renting out these big mega mansions and charging cover charges for these kids that were coming from all over Florida. And then, of course, the neighbors are calling saying that, we've got this noise complaint and now we've got to go send them out and go break them up. And you've got hundreds of people. I remember there was one summer we could not catch a break. It was just consistent every weekend that we knew that these house parties that our unit started doing all the little undercover things to kind of start breaking them up before they even happened. But yeah,
Sure.
definitely that tourist area was such a big thing before, and now it's just kind of trickled into the other residential areas, surprisingly. So now those areas are getting extremely populated. They've grown so much. We've built so many houses there that now it's kind of all the county's starting to just all be the same.
Wow, that's amazing. And there's so many areas down there where it's just farmland and
Yeah,
field,
that's where
and
I
that
live,
and that
thankfully.
still exists.
Yep. I watch the cows run across the street at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
There you go. And then right up the street, you got Party City.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
So how has E&P going to help your career? What do you think the big value of that is going to be for you? Where do you see that sparking you in the future?
Yeah, so it goes into my future goals. So I have my 5 year, 10 years, 15-year goals. And
Oh, you're
so
way too organized for me. Good golly.
so my next 5 year goals, or these 5 year goals, they're always constantly changing. And so like we were talking earlier, I'm 27 now. So my goal by the time I'm 30 is to get a little more involved in the 911 field, especially with Nina. if there's any way that I can help out with any standards or anything or any committees that I can join. I mean, I'm part of Women in 911 now. I'm part of their scholarship and recognitions board. So I took that first step by getting involved somehow. So for the future, I want to be able to continue to get involved, continue to just be that game changer or field changer that a lot of people talk about, and at least contribute a little bit. I just want to be able to say by the time that I retire that I was able to contribute a little bit of my knowledge, a little bit of what I have in the public sector and the private sector, and just be able to know that, in the future after I retire, I was able to give something because it gave so much to me and personally and professionally.
Well, you seem like you're a good public speaker. You're certainly comfortable in front of strangers. You can present well if you know your topic,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you become an expert on your topic and can speak just openly about that, you've got a great path ahead of you. So, what's your topic going to be? What's your expertise area going to be? Do you think?
That's a good question. I I haven't gotten that far in sitting down because ENP took so much of my time and my mental capacity just to know that that was my goal for this year was just to get past it, just to get it done. So now is where I sit down and again, it goes back to those goals and reevaluating everything. So now I'll sit down and I'll actually look at, where my interests mostly lie within the field, what I'm ready to continue to dig deep into and continue to kind of move forward. So, one of the biggest things that I left when I was at the agency was recruiting and staffing. That was like one of the biggest things because as a supervisor, I saw how that lack of staffing took so much of a toll out of my people at the time. I knew how much one extra person a shift could just cause that workload to lessen a little. And you could actually see that workload lessen on your people's face as they had one more person helping them answer the phone. Or we went so many months without a radio relief position where everybody could get up from the radio position so freely that when you had that one part-timer come in and just take it over, you saw how much everybody could just breathe and how they were kind of like, where am I going to go out to lunch this time? And it's crazy, but I came from the time in 911 at the beginning where we had too many people on the radio. We had to circulate them into the 911 phones. So they had to actually call take. And that was not my favorite after I learned how to handle a primary radio channel. But then we went into just a time when we were kind of just bare bones and we were just kind of at our minimal staffing. And so I think that's where my interests are going to lie is being able to, I don't want to say help agencies kind of retain their staffing, but maybe talking about either my experiences or I don't know, we'll see where it goes from there. I'm very much a go with the flow person, so it'll start off as one thing today and end up as something else tomorrow.
That's an interesting topic, intelligent creative recruiting for
Mhm,
agencies, right? Understanding how to identify your target group that you want to hire.
mhm,
So don't hire 61-year-old Fletcher. He's dead almost. Go get this person because this is someone you can create and grow and then, move to the future. That's going to help your agency. Here's how you find them. Here's how you get them. Here's how you recruit them. And here's how you treat them once you got them so they
mhm.
don't leave. That whole thing right there is a entire career path
Absolutely.
that you could build your plan around. So when I'm
Yeah,
old in a wheelchair and Fletcher taught me that. Take care of him. Don't be nice to him.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a field that is going to continue to grow and get bigger. And I mean, we're always going to have a large population of people around, but that large population of people are always going to have something that they're going to call 911 for. I mean, this is probably some of the biggest job security that a person will ever have is public safety. And so knowing that, you've got to learn how to, again, I don't want to use the word perfect it, but get close to it. at least learn how to, like you said, retain those people and get them to stay in the job. Because as you know, there are people out there who this runs in their family. They continue, these parents have shown their children that this is a career that is worthwhile, and now those children are getting into that career. So now you can build generations, the same generations that went into law enforcement, the same generations that went into fire rescue. You can build the same thing out of it for 911.
Yeah, that's amazing. You're a very shy person, it's hard to get things out of you.
You know what? I was never like this before. And until it kind of was like, I had to change my mindset and kind of go into this whole, what do you have to lose if you give your opinion or if you talk? And once I went into that mindset, it was like the door just opened, and now I can't really shut it.
You need to smile more too. Just trying to give you a couple of tips for the future. Wonderful. It has been very inspiring talking to you. I tell you that it's great, fantastic. And we hardly even covered the EMP stuff I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So just so we don't totally waste that. What did you find the most difficult thing about the ENP exam?
Oh man. So I studied every night, and my poor husband, he was kind of like he took the book, and I had just highlighted everything so much to the point that it just kind of looked like it was running all together. And I was just like, here, ask me questions and go for it. And, knowing that it has a 600 question bank and only 150 of those questions are going to be pulled from it, it was nuts for me, because I was like, I'm not going to be able to remember half of this when I go in to take that test. And the worst part was, while I'm organized, I'm also a procrastinator. So probably the most opposite things ever. So it wasn't until like that last week before the exam that my brain kind of was like accepting of all the information that I had just gone through the last 2 months. And it was kind of like, now we can finally understand everything. But I think it's just because we were coming down to that time crunch. But I think the most difficult was the technical side, because I had not done too much of the technical stuff when I was in the center. So learning the different pathways and understanding the calls and what it could route through, that took so much for me to understand. And even repetition, I'm a repetition person, and I could write it down as many times as I could, and I still could not. I mean, up to the last hour before the exam, I was still kind of verbally saying it out loud, hoping that I would just catch it. And even then, when I sat down for that exam and those questions came up, I was like, I didn't study any of this. None of this was in the book that I just read, or any of the tests or practice tests that I'd done. And like what I was telling you before, I'm surprised that I even passed.
How did you feel after you took the test? I mean, when you were done, and you were waiting for the green circle email to come up, did you feel like it ain't gonna happen, or what?
Yeah, I had a method when I went in to take that exam. It was go with all the questions that you know first, and then we'll handle everything else after.
Okay, that's my method, by the way.
Oh, that method didn't really work when it came to like question 2, and I was like, I don't know this. Let me keep going. And so I went to question 10, and I was like, oh, well, 3 of these 7 questions have only been answered. So I had to take a break in the middle of it. But towards the end, it was kind of like, I'm confident about half of these questions. So then it kind of went to, I need to find the silver lining. And I was like, okay, well, if I don't pass this, at least I took it, and at least I did that effort and went into it, and I know what it's like. And so I was so convinced that I had not passed that exam that when I got to the car, I had called Erica, and I was like, hey, I'm going to forward you my email when I get it, and then you can read it for me. And if I don't pass, just hang up the phone. It's fine. I've taken it as a sign I didn't pass. And so she's like, well, don't worry, I'll read it through. And so at the time I was sending it to her, and it's real funny the way she did it. But she's like, you can always take it again if you need to, but there's no need for you to do it. And I was like, yeah, but and she's like, no, you don't need to do it. And I was like, oh, Oh, I passed.
Erica sucks, by the way. You should know that.
Oh, she's probably one of
I
the.
can see how you two. I'm not coming to Central Florida and hanging out with you two because handcuffs are in my future. I can tell you that right now.
That'd be really bad because my husband's a deputy, so he'd be really upset.
Yeah, he might be the one putting handcuffs on all of us too. You're going to jail. I'm talking to when we get home. Yeah, no, I can see that happening. Definitely. Well, that's interesting. So do you think the test is effective? Did it test the right stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd be interested to see the different versions of the test
Mm-hmm.
to see what questions actually show up, if they're kind of the same, or I mean, you'd probably know, like, are the variations just completely different from each other that you won't see the same question probably again?
You're not going to see the same question. What you're going to, there's categories.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure, okay, we've got questions on this, and this. And as we retire some questions, there'll be, okay, well, TDD, 911 TDD text, or TTY stuff, that's now phasing out. So what we're doing is we're backfilling with 988 questions, and 988 was on the test.
Yeah.
They'll pass 2 testing rounds for the first time ever. We made sure that 988 stuff was in that test when, those were questions we selected. A lot of this is all computer generated by these algorithms that who knows what the hell they are, but they're good and they work. So we get a suggested list and we go through and we throw out and add in. So there are certain amounts of different categories. So not necessarily the same question, but the same category around the same area. Maybe the same thing asked 2 different ways, but from a different perspective type thing. We sit down and, we write 2 tests a year. Every year we pick the 150 questions for 2 sets. So, that's people say, oh, you're on the NIB, you don't have to take the test. Bull, I have to take it twice every year. Now, doesn't matter if I pass it, of course.
Yeah.
But, so that stress is not there. But I got to sit down and read it and go through it and make sure these answers make sense. And, once in a while, there was a 988 question that was brand new on this last test. And we have the right answer. And then 3, what we call distractors, which are there as cleverly crafted as possible to lead you off in the wrong direction. And those are fun to write. I love doing that. Well, there was one question that happened to be on both exams this year that had one correct answer, a really, really good distractor that was almost right, but it wasn't. And then 2 others, one of which was a pretty good candidate, and one that was just, yellow, or they shouldn't even been there, right? We had a couple people get a 104, and going back, we found, or PTC found, and this is why we use a testing company.
Yeah.
Hey, this one question was answered wrong by a lot of people, and everybody who got it wrong selected this answer or this answer. Can you look at this? Oh, wow. Weren't we not clear enough on the distractor? And we looked at it and we're like, oh, you know what? The distractor was good, but the way we worded the question made the distractor as a pretty good choice. And if you took it this way, I could see where people would make that mistake. And so many people got that one wrong with that wrong choice. We went back and we said, okay, rescore and count that one question with multiple correct answers. even though they weren't intended to be the
Yeah.
correct answers. And we rewrote the question to better clarify so that won't happen again. Would you believe that we had a couple of people that had scored a 104, and sure enough, that one question being added back on gave them the 105 that they needed to pass. And we went back to the July test and we found a person there with the same question
Wow.
and short 1 point. Now that was months ago. And oh, hey, by the way, you passed.
Yeah. Oh my God. That must be probably, I'm gonna say I'm a big person on feelings, and I'd probably say that was probably the best feeling in the world.
You know what? And we were concerned how that would be, what the perception would be.
Yeah.
And myself and a bunch of other people are like, they should be happy
Mhm.
because the test worked. They
Mhm.
should be happy because we should be happy because our controls
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
We found it. And we were able to even go back and correct a recent test. And, okay, so you missed it by 1 point. And this one, you know what? The system worked.
Yeah.
And, it affected a lot of other people, but not to being the one question that made them pass or fail.
Mhm.
They either failed by a whole lot or they passed by
Yeah.
a whole lot. But there
Yeah.
were a couple that, boy, this was the deciding factor. And we
Oh,
always talk
man.
about that, but I never had a great example of it. So this is
Well, there
why
you go.
every question matters, man. And it was great for us because it told us that when we're writing new questions, we need to be really, really
Yeah.
careful because
Yeah.
that one question can make or break somebody's life,
Definitely. Absolutely.
right? Can you imagine? What if you were the person that had the one question?
That's what I kept imagining.
This
That's what I kept
industry could have lost a great
Yeah.
future leader. I see
Oh,
things. I see things for you.
thank you.
So, and hanging out with the Wonder Women,
Oh, yeah.
Wonder Women, right? 9-1 Wonder
Yep.
Women. Sarah Weston. She's from Orlando too, right?
Yep. From Oviedo, yeah.
What's in the Central Florida water?
I mean, Florida is already a great state, so just gonna keep getting
Well,
better
no, I
from
mean,
here on.
Erica Lakey, yourself. I mean, Sarah Weston. I mean, there's a lot of women I know out of
Oh, yeah.
Orlando, the Orlando area. And I know they call you Orlando, but you're not even in the same county
No.
as
Nope.
and I'm sure that drives you nuts.
Far from it.
Yeah, no kidding. That's too funny. Well, listen, it's really been a pleasure, and I'm hoping to meet you at conference,
Yeah,
and we can hang
absolutely.
out a little bit. And you know, put me on the schedule, and you're on my schedule for
Okay.
a year from now, and we're going to start doing the ENP tap back. What's
I like that.
happening, going on? True
I like that.
Confessions tap back. I just came up with that. I'm going to write that down now. This is
That's
the
a
thing.
really good idea.
I come up with these great ideas, but I don't write them down. So, but that's good. ENP tap back. Nice. Yasmen was here when this was invented.
I
How
know.
about that? And I got to give you your ENP.
For real. Yeah.
That was special for me. So for those of you who don't know, there was a little bit of a delay, and I sent ENP podcast notifications out before some people, quite a few people apparently, even got their U1 notifications. So I got to do that for a few people. So that was special for me. But anyway, thanks so much for sitting down. This has really been, these are all educational for me. I'd love to see people who are making this their career and making it their career decision, and even going through and expanding early into the private sector like you're doing. Because look, public safety is great. It's a great mission. We need those people there, but the private sector is there as well. We've got to develop the applications. We've got to support that infrastructure.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to be 61 years old like me coming in with your walker and wheelchair. It's nice to see people like yourself come in that are still young and capable and vibrant and not falling asleep during meetings. Because,
Listen, you bring a lot to the table because you bring so much knowledge. And, I once was part of I want to say a round table with someone who they kept saying about their age and talking with the younger generation where they didn't feel like they could make suggestions because they didn't want that younger generation to feel like they were being overbearing on them. And I turned around and I was like, no, wait, I'm one of those people who want you to do that. I want that knowledge because you're bringing so much of your experience to the table. You're bringing so much that I can learn from for the future to get better and also to help our field as well. So keep bringing that back. Don't hold back. Don't not say anything because that takes away from how we can get better.
look at you turning this whole goddamn podcast around on me. You almost made me cry. Wow, that's cool. I mean, most of the time I think, well, this is just old cop stories from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago that don't make squat to anybody.
Oh, no, I want to hear them. All of them.
Oh,
All of them.
I just called my buddy the other day, my old partner. We pulled over a DWI one night. She went around the corner on two wheels in a Datsun pickup truck.
Oh.
And we pulled her out, and literally he's doing the DUI test. I'm standing behind her, holding her up and moving her arms. Touch your nose. Yep, there you go. Now, you're drunk. So we both grab her under either arm because she cannot stand. She is so drunk.
Yikes.
Okay, Miss So-and-so, you're under arrest for driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Bam! Snapped alert like you would not believe. Took us both down to the ground, plus two guys in the DWI car sitting across the road watching this.
Oh my God.
It took all four of us to get her in the back of a car and get her transported.
Wow.
And we are ripped to shreds. She wasn't 5 feet tall and 95 pounds.
That fight or flight really did kick in.
She was on something in addition to being drunk. But, we were just laughing our ass off, because that stuff I don't know if it even happens anymore, but that was just like, oh my God, like, does this even mean anything to anybody anymore? Like, or all the nights, I got way too many stories, but anyway.
I'll hear them at some point, I'm sure.
You will, get me out for a couple of drinks and you'll be like, don't go drinking with Fletcher unless you've got about a day. Because that's going to be 6-7 hours of your life you're not getting back.
That's fine.
All
I'm
right.
sure I'll learn some sort of lesson.
Yasmen, thank you very much. Another dispatcher with a cool name. I love it. Dispatcher Yasmen Barnett. And I Am Responding, a cool app that's now part of Rapid SOS. I just learned that. That's interesting.
Definitely.
A great example of next generation 911 technology that's just expanding the toolbox. I'm using a quote from 911 Locate out of the UK. But, that's what they do. They expand the toolbox with their set. Send a text message. Let me ping you back. Where's your device? Okay. I mean, all of this stuff is just regular tech that everybody uses, but 911 doesn't have access to it. But people like you and them and my company, we're really blending the lines there. And I think that's so cool. Maybe that's where our value is in this industry. But anyway. All right. Am I going to see you at conference?
Yeah, definitely.
You're going to be at Nina?
Trying. Definitely trying.
All right. Well, wherever you are, look me up. We definitely got to get together.
That sounds good.
Thanks for sitting down. You've been a superstar, and you've really taught me a couple of lessons today. So
I'm glad.
Old dog, new tricks. Thanks very much. Yasmen Barnett, ENP. You have been blessed. You're one of us now. Go forth and teach. Thanks for showing up.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Have a great day.
You too.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Off the Cuff, Confessions of an ENP. I'm Mark Fletcher, ENP, and I'm the Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform. Off the Cuff is sponsored by 911 Inform, delivering next-generation 911 solutions to the enterprise today and making every second count. Visit them on the web at 911inform.com. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Fletch911. Check out all my blogs and podcasts at Fletch.tv. And be sure to like and subscribe below. That way you'll be immediately notified whenever a new podcast is published. Thanks so much for listening. If you're in public safety, thanks for what you do. Take care and have a great day.